Alright, things are moving on nicely now. Left these overnight to totally dry for the acrylic areas and all the paints and all the other bits and pieces. Now I've done the Mustang already. Now this has had, I've been round and I've checked all the seams. We've gone round and we've sanded and polished all the seam lines to make sure there's nothing there whatsoever, and they're all nice joints. Now we've done exactly the same on the Thunderbolt as well. So our next thing we're going to have to do now is to rescribe any panel lines. Obviously we've missed going around the front. Now there's lots of ways you could do this. You could like get your P cutter and you can actually then come along and scratch down and then down, but trying to get a little nick in the leading edge is always a bit of a problem. Quickest and easiest way I've always done it, I've used a sharp knife, and all I do is pop it on the bottom, on the top, and just give a little tiny push and just curve it actually round as you go. Now on the Thunderbolt here you've only actually got two on the outer sections, so we just push, just a little push, nothing hard, you're not trying to cut in the wing, and just wrap it round just like that. Now it's enough that the wash or whatever wash you're using will then fill that, and away you go. You won't actually have to carve it out, make a deep one. Now obviously on the Mustang we've got a bit more to do, so all you do, start it on the underside like this, okay, and you just roll it round and push up and then pull back and go around and rescribe technically all of these in. Now if you've got a big thick wing, you could then actually use your P cutter or your scribing tool to go right round, but if you're going to be using a wash, as we will, you won't actually need to anyway. But if you just push down, it'll be enough to sort of crush to depress a new panel line in there, and you can go down. Obviously if you were pulling it along and we were cutting along the actual panel, it would make a raised line, but by just pushing down you'll give yourself a nice recessed line. Just go along. And make sure you do the outer one as well, which I think I forgot on this side. And there we go. It's going to be one of those things, you pretty much have to take my word for it. But certainly areas here, we've still got the grey on this area, the wing here on the leading edge, that we can do it. But the thing is, if you don't, as I say, it looks a bit odd, and especially with Second World War stuff, when you're photographing it, it's always nice to get that nice low angle shot looking up, and if there's not a panel line on the front, it does look rather strange. So that bit's done now. As I say, Mustang is basically all done, all ready to go. All I've finished doing is painting black around the outside. Now in a minute I'm going to mask up the canopies and fit those in. Our friend here over the Thunderbolt, we've still got to mask up the front end, which I'll do shortly before, but the same thing, I'm going to get going now and mask up the canopies, and then we can get this into a primer situation, and we're going to be doing something slightly different. So okay, we're just about to start spraying. The Mustang here is all now closed up. We've got the canopy on, usual thing, a little bit of blue tack just in there, and the doors are all shut up. So it's now completely all ready for spraying there. Now, this one over here on the P47, it's a little bit more tricky, the way it all goes in. Now obviously you could just mask up and do it, you know, how you want to do it, your own personal taste. With me, as I said, I like to use the geared doors. Now obviously on the geared doors you've got these tiny little pegs just on the back here. From my point of view, all I'm going to do is cut off the peg that actually goes in. So if you look, it's like a hook shape, a little R. Just take the top of the R off and then trim it back just a tad, because you're going to need all of that. So we're still left with those little tabs on there, just like that. And then that way it will still be able to use it, and the tabs will still work and everything. It's just from this point of view we can poke it in now. So all we're going to do, usual thing, good generous blob of blue tack, because as I say, it's not just using it to hold the pieces in, it'll also help mask that area. So obviously if we then go in, we can poke that in and then push that in just like so, and we can do the same to all the other doors. We have to put that one in first so they will lay in, and then we'll just do another one just in this area here. So we just push that one in there, and then this one's got little legs on it anyway, which fit just like so. And then we can put this first one in again. Now it's not going to lay completely flush, but it's enough there to be able to sort of stop it from getting masked in, and it will give us the overall colour. And then afterwards, if we wanted to, we could respray it as a single, but then obviously we don't have to worry about overspray. Okay, so our big thing is when you're doing metal finished aircraft, whatever type of paint you're using, you're going to need a good base coat. The basic thing is, obviously, because it's going to be a glossy type finish, it needs to have a nice, good looking coat underneath. Now what you have to do is make sure you're dust free, because any bits of dust will go through. So this is just a dry bit of kitchen towel, and we're just giving it a bit of a wipe over everywhere. Now, some things to look out for. Obviously, if you've been doing a lot of work on your model, especially sanding and filling and things like that, you might get this type of situation when your panel lines are actually full up with various debris. Now, obviously, if you just get a brush, it might not come out like that. So what you actually want to do is use your scriber. So just literally lay your scriber in, pull it down, and let the scriber do all the work. You know, don't go in there trying to sort of re-scribe. You're just literally going to drag it along those lines just to clean them out. Now, the other thing as well, which is slightly different from painting from your normal type of spraying that we do, is that we're going to actually give this a coat of black primer. Now, this is the Valero 057. You could use a gloss primer going down, especially if you use nail clads. This one at the moment, we're going to stick to just doing the actual Valeros and working through it like that. So this is neat at the moment, going straight into the bottle. Now normally I would spray it just like that, but today, because we want a very nice glossy finish, we're just going to add a few drops, probably just like 1 milliliter into a 5mm cup there of thinners. And we're going to give that a nice mix round, just like that. And then we're going to spray the entire model completely. And then at the same time afterwards, I'm going to do the P47 as well. Just going to be a complete, nice, shiny, a satin finish, if you like, of black. Now, if you're using and you want a totally mirror finished aircraft, then you're going to need to put down a gloss coat first. Now, there's various ways you can do this. You can actually just put down a gloss black to start with, and away you go, or you can actually put down a satin black like this type of thing and then give it a coat of a clear gloss afterwards. Now, I wouldn't recommend Future as such, because Future doesn't like to turn to a gloss coat unless you're hand brushing it, as we've spoken about various times before. Right, so I'm going to keep the compressor on because I need lots of pressure. As I say, we're in here, we're running at approximately 30 psi, so we've got a high psi and we've got the 0.4 needle in there. Okay, so what we're going to do, nice light dusty coats for the moment until we get a primer on. So obviously this has got something for the black to stick to, if you like. And just building it up. And don't forget, this will be exactly the same as the other thing as well, where obviously if you've got any daft joins or nasty marks and things like that, we can take care of them now. So okay, this one's been drying now for about 10 minutes. Doesn't take long because it's on the flat. So what I've now done, I've loaded up the colour cup. It's 5mm colour cup. I've got probably 50-50 mix between the Valero Model Air and the actual thinners, so it's probably really, in real terms, down to about 75% thinners, 25% paint. Still the 0.4 needle, but the air pressure now is down to 15 psi. Now if we keep that on, okay, we can probably hear the difference immediately coming out of the compressor. Okay, then what we'll do is nice, gentle coat all over. Don't hang around too long. This is a very wet mix. And obviously we don't want to have any runs. Okay, so the black is now totally dry. It's a nice satin finish, very smooth. Now, obviously for this one we're going to be using the Valeros. Now, the thing with them is, I've been practicing and I've done this little colour swatch, if you like. Now, the black area is just the same as we've got on the wings here. It's just straightforward black, which is satin finish, and then down the middle here I've got a swathe where it's not, to see if there's any tonal difference between the two, because you do get that effect obviously when you're using alclads, but not with these. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up, but to be totally honest, there isn't a massive deal of difference between the four colours I have here, which the three colours we have here, which is basically the chrome, the silver and the steel. The steel is a little bit flatter, which is more sort of aluminium-y, if you like, but certainly the chrome is almost, would be the equivalent, I suppose, to sort of a titanium more type of colour than a chrome. And then obviously the silver is a very nice silver, which I would pretty much put it with the Tamiya silver. But when you line them up next to each other, there isn't a massive lot of difference in it, if you know what I mean. I don't know quite if I keep moving it around with the shining of the camera. But obviously down here, this dark one you've got here is the gunmetal compared to the others. But yeah, that's the thing with it though. It's to say, it's not a huge choice that you get there. So what I've elected to do is I'm going to use the actual the steel colour, as I say, because it's got more of a sort of flat look, which aluminium gets. Now I've got the airbrush all fired up here, all ready to go. This is neat, straight in the bottle, quite high air pressure. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're checking our flow, we're all okay, and we're just going to put a light coat on first. We'll work our way back. Just like that, so we've done it that way, now we're just going to go up and down. Just like that. Okay, we're going to work our way very lightly all over the model. And there we go. One very, very silver Mustang there. If we just unscrew this attach, just to be able to get this into its holes. Okay, initial things of spraying the silver there. One, I'm amazed how little paint we actually used. Obviously, I'll leave that to one side for a sec. Obviously, when we're using the Valeros and that, they tend to, you know, last a lot longer than perhaps other conventional paints. But certainly, I'm amazed how little paint we've used. I put in the colour cup here probably about 2.5 mil of paint, and I've probably got 1.5 mil still left. So that's a good sign. So that's that done. Now obviously with all acrylics like this, it's going to take a while to dry, and what we're going to do, we're going to go round with the model afterwards and we're going to put in different coloured panels and tonal differences and things like that. But obviously, you know, it's going to need a long time to dry, so we're going to leave that now 24 hours to totally go off. Okay, so you've seen those photos. I'm not 100% sure what's gone wrong now. Obviously we're doing tests. I've got some extra parts on the go now where we're doing lots of tests to find out exactly what went wrong. But obviously something in the future has broken the surface down of the actual paint. Now originally I thought perhaps it had been on there not long enough, but it's actually been on there for 24 hours before we attempted to put a clear coat over the top. I've given it all a good sand down. Obviously I didn't do the bottom before it went wrong, but certainly the top half's taken quite a beating. It's basically all smooth now. We've got it all off of any joint. Okay, well, in light of the troubles we had with the clear going on top, we're still doing tests at the moment. It's not just me, there's a few other guys on the site as well who are doing various tests to see if they can get the same type of results I'm getting. So far, everybody who's put clear or sort of Johnson's floor wax on this stuff, it's melted. There is no way around it. Now what seems to happen is, if you can see down in this corner here, what I actually did for this wingtip, I brushed this morning. It's been on here now almost 72 hours. It still did it, and then I gave it a wipe off with a bit of cloth here, and it gets it, and it leaves a very, very fine pigment behind that's very, very smooth. It's almost as like when it obviously it had multiple coats of paint. I'm not saying it hasn't, but what it seems to be is as if it leaves a dusty coat on the surface, and then what happens is the future manages to penetrate it, rehydrate it if you like, and then it wipes off. So as you see here, we haven't gone down to the plastic as we did on other areas, but we've certainly gone down through. But the trouble is it's very, very patchy, which is no good. So although it does give a very nice polished metal effect, it's not the type of thing that's going to be good for using it on your aircraft all over, unless you want it to be very patchy, somewhat like this wingtip here. So after a lot of discussions and finding out what other modelers use for using metalwork, we've come up with using Citadale's metallics range. Now I've just literally had these delivered, sort of they popped in overnight. So we've got bolt gunmetal, which is quite a nice, it's sort of like a titanium burnt iron type look, probably very nice for jet exhausts actually. Mithril silver, which looks like your standard type of chrome silvery, that type of thing really you can get with anything aluminium-y type look. And then we've got chainmail, which is somewhat between the two if you like. It's quite a nice colour, probably work very well for panelling for sort of titanium areas and things like that, magnesium, things, that type of colour. So a lot of people thin them just with water. A lot of people thin them with thinners. There's no way. I'm going to try and do it with thinners because I'm used to working with thinners and not being in a particularly good water area as well. So we're going to give that a whirl. So what we're going to do, this top area has obviously been sanded back and is done. The bottom isn't, but it's had a damn good wipe over. So what I'm hoping is, and it is somewhat of a shortcut, but we can actually just spray over the top of this and it will be fine, and then we can then do our other things and it won't affect, because it'll obviously be blocked. Okay, all I've done is we've got 1 mil thinners in the colour cup, and I've taken 2 brush loads to decant across and give it a good mix. Now it looks quite a nice runny mix, and obviously this is all totally new to me as well, having never used this. So what we're going to do, we're going to put that there. Obviously we'll start on the top of this one, and we're just going to have a go on a wing and see what happens. So we're running at quite a high PSI for this, so we're at near 30, 0.4 needle set. We've got a good colour flow, seem to have good control. Okay, and we're just spraying on. Okay, backing off a little because it is a little thin, or thinner than what I'm used to spraying. So we're just drying off now. Obviously I know this is going to have a hard time because it's going over, obviously the silver's on there before. Okay, back to paint. Okay, I'm finding it just a little bit thin, so what I'm going to do, we're getting low anyway, I'm going to add, there's another 0.5 mil of thinners going in there, and I'm going to do 3 dollops, if you like, of paint going in. The chances are, if I was just using this normal, I would be alright with 2, but because of the actual what we're trying to cover, we're covering up a big mistake, we're covering up a patchy surface. I'm finding it's just having a little trouble covering, So we're going to go with 3, giving a good mix around with a soft brush here. Okay. Right, adjusting to air at the moment. Just drying off everywhere. Okay, we check our flow. Okay, coming through nice. Okay, off we go again. Okay, it's covering a little speckly now, if anything, so I've probably over thicken the paint a little, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to run with this paint being a little bit thick, and then we're going to thin it afterwards for the aftercoats. Okay, so the Citadel Silver is on there now. That's that the Mithril Silver. So what I've actually done now, we've just masked up some areas to pick out, the same as we did on with the Alclads, some different tonal shapes. Now, obviously going around finding references is a bit hard because a lot of the modern ones, as I say, they tend to keep them all polished and a lot silver. So working out the different colours and metals is a bit hard. So by going around with some black and white photos, you may be able to, you know, sort of glean some information that way. All I've got is I've got a few reference books and it shows black and white photos, so I've roughly sort of judged where I can to work out where various things are different colours and work it like that. So what we've done, we've got this front area here, some areas under the wings, a couple of little bits and pieces around the back end, but mainly the wings are going to be taking the brunt. So all we're doing is we're just finishing off masking these areas. So far the Citadel paints have worked very well. This has been on here for about 3 hours now drying, and so far no problems. So now we're going to go in with some chainmail. Funny colour names, I know. This one is pretty close to what I would describe as a mix between the Tamiya XF56 and the X32. Because when you look at them, they're not unsimilar, it's just a little bit darker, so it's somewhere in between the two, I would say. So we're just going to look this open. Okay, we're going to put 1/2 mil in here. This is 1 mil going in first. Same thing, because obviously the trouble with decanting it, I've got a brush, one drip off and then one goes in. Okay, that's nice, looks good. Okay, one more. So really it's a sort of mixture. I'm doing one brush full, which is this is a number 3 brush, to 1/2 mil of thinners. If you're trying to work out how much I've got, it looks quite a nice colour. Let's just close that up. Right, same thing, very high PSI, about 30, 0.4 needle, still check our flow, and we can spraying it next to the colour we've got down here. You can tell, obviously the one closer to you is a lot darker, so it's going to give some darker shading. Okay, so we're just mixing nice dusty pasts. Nothing heavy. Back to air. A little bit heavy there. Just back off a bit. The Citadel spraying properties are not quite like you're probably used to. They tend to be a bit, you know, if you get a bit carried away, before you know it you've blasted and you're going to get run. So take it easy with it, just let it gently build up in the layers, and there's no real rush. And don't tend to rush your painting. And every now and again when you're looking a bit wet, just cut back to air, and there we go, success. The Citadels have taken very, very well. Got a nice variation colour. I don't know how well you can see that. Always a bit shiny with the, you know, obviously we can do with silvers, but you see it all works quite well. We had no lift at all with the Tamiya tape, so that passes the first test. Normally I was saying if you're using a gloss silver like this, certainly on a Tamiya, you're looking at a 24-hour drying time before you can actually get in there. to actually mask up, but that's worked really well. I'm very happy with that. Obviously we were just as happy when we were using the Valeros at this stage, so only time will tell. But considering the hard life this particular kit's had now, obviously by sanding back and taking it back and various other bits and pieces, I think it's looking very well. Okay, so I know I've done it before, but I'll show you how we do it now. In here, all I've got is some Johnson's Clear, which is this stuff that I talk about a lot. Really, why do we use it? It's cheap. Look, you get a giant half a litre for £2.50 and you spray it everywhere. It dries pretty quick and it's as hard as nails. That's the easy way. Okay, flat brush. Not a particularly thick flat brush, just a normal flat brush. Dip it in, load it up. Now you will find you'll get little bubbles, but you don't have to worry about those. Okay, and all we do, we go across and we're just going to go in. Now it doesn't look particularly nice when you first put it on. You get all types of little lines and bubble bits and things like that, but it's one of those things. Just take the edges off like you do, nice gentle brush strokes everywhere, and then leave it flat and let it dry naturally. Don't come along with your hair dryer or leaving it in the sun to dry, because what happens is the surface skin dries quite hard, and then obviously as it all shrinks in underneath, you get sort of like a satin effect where it's actually cockling the surface. So that's all we do. But the thing is, you don't want to get any runs, so it's best to take it nice and easy, gentle brush strokes, and put a nice thin coat on, because obviously you can come back time and time again and put on as many coats as you like. Now for hand brushing like this, something like this, obviously you want a somewhat of a nice glossy finish to our model, so it might take about 5 thin coats. Now I use thin coats. I don't like to go in there with big thick heavy coats slapping around on there, because I really don't want the runs, and runs are your biggest fear when you're using this, because also if you get any pooling, it tends to then, you'll get like a yellowy type blob appear. Now when you're brushing it as well, you may notice it's sort of it can't break the surface tension, it tends to sit. Just get your brush, work it over it, and when it starts to sort of cockle up again, just run your brush over it and flatten it out. Just do the same on this other side. It's best not to do this on a very hot day. To be honest, today is a very hot day and I shouldn't be doing this, but because we're somewhat behind on the build, I'm trying to sort of play a bit of catch up and get it done. But really, I should wait and do it first thing in the morning, like that really. There we go. Also, you hear about people spraying them with ammonia because it breaks the surface to get a high gloss finish. To be honest, from my personal point of view, I've tried it, couldn't get it to work. It looked a mess, didn't look very nice at all. So that's why I sort of stick to this way of brush painting it on. As I say, just let the layers build up. Don't go rushing in there with big thick lots of paint, because you'll end up ruining it. And certainly the last thing you need is to get big pools of future around anywhere. What can happen sometimes, if you get a slight pooling of the future in an area, if you just put a drop just on top of it again, and what will happen is it'll actually melt the underside of the future, and then you'll be okay. Then you can then carry on, because it'll take out that distorted area. Now it's not the best job down the back here by the tail wheel. That's purely because we've had so many troubles with it, and we've done various bits and pieces trying to fix the paint and whatnot. It's all looking a bit messy, and obviously I keep poking it in a stand that's just out of shot, which doesn't help either. So I'm just going to put some on the rudder. So as you can see, the Mustang now is all painted and done. Now this had a hand brushed coat of future. or you're clear onto it. Got a door come off there, but we can put that back if needed. Very happy with it. The only tiny areas, we've got a few bits in the tail on the back, which is where I didn't quite sand it all back down. It's totally my fault, not the Citadel's paints. Now, as for the Citadel's paints, I'm very impressed. Hard as nails. Your biggest trouble you find when you're dealing with any metallic is that sometimes when you handle them, they wear down, and you know, various bits and pieces that make them tricky to use. My only drawback to them is the metal flecks I was talking about earlier that go airborne. They're a lot worse with the Citadels than anything else I've used. But that's quite a nice trade-off, because the effect you get with it, I don't know how well you can see it, it's a very nice metal finish. You can't actually see the fleck, which obviously Tamiya is a classic. They're silver, the chrome they use, you can see the fleck in the paintwork. This you have to look very, very hard, and all considering that the hard life that this particular model's had, obviously it's had multiple coats, it's had problems, and you know, where I've had to sand down and rub back. I think all things considered, it's come out an absolute star and it looks a gem. So what we're going to do now, it's been drying for about sort of 6 hours now, the last coat of Future that went on there, and it's all ready now for decaling. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to decal this, and then afterwards I'm going to do the coloured area at the top as the final step. But for the moment, we're going to crack on with the decaling on this one.